Hey there. I was going to say good morning, but it's noon Eastern time. Good morning. Hi, I'm Kari, and I'm the founder of The Spinning Hand. And welcome to those of you who are joining us live, and welcome to those of you who are watching the replay. I'm the founder of The Spinning Hand, and today is the first day of our 5-day workshop, 5 Essential Skills in Knitting. So if you're just joining us, I'd love to hear whether you are someone someone posted a sad face. I don't know why. If you're just joining us, go ahead and comment where you're joining us from. So I am in Maplewood, New Jersey. It's a suburb of Newark, 5 miles outside of Newark, 15 miles outside of New York City. And it's like 50 degrees today, which is wonderful. So go ahead and comment. Tell us where you're listening from, and welcome. And also let me know if you're just learning to knit, like if you're a beginner, or if you're coming back to knitting, or if you've been knitting for a long time. So, oh, great. Cindy is in Hastings, Michigan. And Carrie is in Ohio. What part of Ohio are you in, Carrie? I have a brother in Cincinnati. So I've been knitting since I was about 20, and I learned from my great Aunt Mary. And oh, Cindy says it's 18 degrees out. Oh, that's okay. That's really cold. Hey, Debbie, 47 degrees here and a long-time knitter. And Carrie's in Cleveland. Awesome. Awesome. So I learned to knit when I was about 20, and my great Aunt Mary taught me, and she couldn't slow down the movements with her fingers. She was so, it was so ingrained in her muscle memory that she just said, "Oh, you do it like this." And there was no YouTube there. All I could really figure out after I had visited her was like, looking through these printed books and trying to figure out the written instructions. It was not easy. Cindy says she's been knitting for over 50 years and learned from her mom. Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, I think, 50 years, but that's going to be me soon. Like I've already been knitting 25 years or more. Hi, Deborah from Kansas, 15 degrees. Okay, knitting for about 5 to 7 years, learned to crochet from grandma, and prefers the challenge of knitting. That's interesting because I learned crochet from mom as a kid. I was like 6 years old, and I chain. I made a huge ball of chain. I wanted to make the world's largest crochet chain, but I think the Guinness Book of World Records was a chain miles long. And once I ran out of space in my desk drawer, I gave up on my pursuit of that world record. Hi, Edna. Welcome. So, oh, Jacqueline. Hi, Jacqueline. So Jacqueline is in Florida. I hope that your move has gone smoothly. I wanted to wait till you got settled in to ship you your next kit. But what's the temperature right now? Sometimes for those of us, in the US, even in the south of the US, it's still pretty cold. I have a new team member, Alina, and she's in Texas, and she was looking for a space heater because it's like so cold even in Houston. So great. So I'm going to get started on the first essential skill to have as a knitter. And this is whether you are just beginning knitting or whether you have been knitting for 50 years and anything in between. And that is your mindset. So the number one skill to have is a positive mindset. So let me just quickly introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. And I do see some new names today, which warms my heart. It's so nice to meet you. Edna, And Kari, so welcome. I'm so happy to see you here. My name is Kari Capone, and I am the proud mama of a 20-year-old young man named Andrew. And he's on the left there with me, obviously. So I'm also the happy girlfriend of a wonderful man named Daniel, who's on the right here with the handsome beard. And I've been knitting since I was 20. I grew up always loving arts and crafts. It was my favorite thing to do. I loved to latch hook. I loved to cross stitch. Um, I needle pointed my own wedding ring pillow, and I did that instead of college homework all day long. Like, I would much rather do fiber arts than anything. And I just didn't know that it could be a job. I never knew that I could make a living doing this. And in fact, I've only been making a living doing this for a couple of years. So knitting has always been a side, a hobby and a passion for me, and it still is. But now I sell knitting kits and luxury yarn full time. And, you know, 2020 was like a whole decade, right? The when the pandemic hit, and we were forced to stay indoors, and um, just a lot of time inside. But I will say it was a great opportunity to build an online community. So I met a lot of you in the years of 2020 and 2021, and it's really made this business possible. So silver lining there. Um, okay, let me just check. Edna says, Jacqueline, stop bragging or I'll send you some of Michigan's weather. Yeah. Okay. She used to live in New York. So she had cold weather like the rest of us up until recently. Hey, Danielle. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. Danielle's joining us on YouTube. Awesome. So I've always loved knitting, and I'm so pleased to be able to do it as a full-time job. And yes, I do knit even when I'm not doing my day job. My favorite things to knit are hats and sweaters for myself. And I love to use like bulky wool. And I also love Fair Isle. So I don't use bulky wool for Fair Isle, but that's like when you weave different pictures and different colors and patterns using different colors of yarn. Okay, so let's talk about mindset. Um, And if you stick with me to the end of today, I'm going to send all of you a special gift. And it has to do with the basics of knitting and some of the more mechanical aspects. So I don't want you to think that today is all like, woo, woo, soft skills and mindset. And there's actually like some real hands-on gifts for you at the end of today, having to do with casting on and getting ready to knit. But today I wanted to send your way a few thoughts about mindset, because whether you're starting a new job, a new sport, or a new hobby like knitting, number one thing is to have the right mindset going into it. So one aspect is patience. And I get asked all the time, like, how do you have the patience to knit? Or people will say, I could never make a sweater. I could never sit there and make my own clothes. It's so slow. How on earth could you knit your own socks and then put your feet in them and walk around in them all day? And my answer to people who are inevitably in public or in like a coffee shop who will say this to me, I always say, knitting teaches me patience. So I am not a patient person. That is not my virtue, not my strength. I tend to be very impatient, and I have anxiety. And so knitting is like something to do with my hands that helps me. It's meditative. It grounds me. and just go ahead and comment in the comments if this is something you find as well. Do those of you who have knitted or crocheted, do you find that it gives you patience, or do you tend to lose patience with your knitting? Because I will say for beginners, it's tricky. And this is true with anything. When you first start, there's that learning curve. And if you're an overachiever or a perfectionist like I am, then you want to get something right away. You want it to look beautiful right away. And there's that beginning part where you do have to work through, and so you have to be patient with yourself, and then you get into that groove. So you kind of have to go through that hump before things start to smooth out. So Carrie says yes. Hi, Karen from Southern New Mexico. Amazing. Cindy says it soothes me. And then Jacqueline says, looking forward to learning to knit. So Jacqueline, I've got this gift for you at the end of today. Karen from Texas. Hi. Yes to the anxiety. Yep. Karen, I've been knitting since 2016, and I've been happy to learn many new techniques, but yes, I find it calming. Dr. Elisa, I don't mind ripping out my work, so I will try things that are new to me. That trying something new is the exciting part. Yeah, and thank you for saying I look beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Elisa. And at the beginning, yes, sometimes lost patience. And sometimes I'm just thinking back to, being a beginner, which doesn't feel like so long ago. There were tears, and I was such a slow learner that it took me 2 years before I learned how to purl. So there are two basic stitches that make up knitting. There's the knit stitch and the purl stitch. And for the first 2 years of my knitting career, I only knitted. So everything was garter stitch. Then when I learned to knit in the round, I could make it look like I had purled because I was just knitting around and around and around. But I didn't know how to purl. Finally, I met someone in person who took pity on me and taught me how to purl. Yeah, Jacqueline says, wow. So it's, so if you feel like you're behind, you're not. There's no behind in knitting. Knitting prevents me from thinking about the dysfunction in my family. Amen. Oh, Linda, welcome. Just back from walking the dog. Lots of snow in Michigan. Oi. So we got to knit you some. Did you wear hand knit accessories when you were walking the dog? That's my question. Edna, I find knitting and crocheting very relaxing and very therapeutic. Yeah. So giving yourself just a little dose of patience as you're learning, and then crossing over into, the good news is that once you do learn the basics, then it's a positive spiral, so you'll get more patience. Let's talk about the beginner's mind. So I want you to, again, this is more about being patient with yourself, but when you think about a child learning to walk, right, they fall down on their little bums, and usually they don't cry unless you're kind of looking at them and you react. They're usually fine. They get back up and they try again. It's not like kids just say, well, I'm never going to figure this out. Just stop, right? So I think that's the difference between people who knit and people who don't knit but have tried in the past, is that the people who are still knitting, they just didn't stop. They just kept going. That's what my drum teacher told me when my son and I were taking drum lessons a million years ago. He said, the only difference between me and all those kids who learned how to play the drums when they were kids is that I just didn't stop, and I kept playing, and I'm still playing. So Edna says, my husband is still alive. That's good. So anyway, keeping a beginner's mind when you are learning to knit, and just you know, thinking that you're just going to keep learning, you're just going to keep making mistakes, and that's okay. You're kind of just fumbling your way. That there's really, it's all part of the process, in other words. So if it's your first year knitting, you don't want to think like, oh, I should be making these masterpieces. It's completely okay. Like when you first learn to write, you use a big chunky needle, right? I mean, pencil, and you're just figuring out how to make letters and then words. And it's the same thing with knitting. You just start with the very basics, and then you build on that. You build on that foundation. Okay. So this is one of this cracked me up. Please don't fall into the comparison trap. On the left, we have the Pinterest-worthy two-color brioche fancy hat using very expensive yarn. And then on the right, we have what sometimes happens when we try to make our first hat. It's too small. It just doesn't work. Try, if you can, not to compare your beginning, if you're beginning or wherever you are in your path, try not to compare that to someone else's end. So, when you look at a project and you look at a product photo, keep in mind that that's been, done by a professional, and it's been carefully photographed to show off its best features. And, it's probably made by someone who has knit millions of pieces already. Sometimes they're even knit by machines. But don't think, oh, like mine could never look like that. Yeah. Jacqueline says that's what mine will look like. And Edna says mistakes make a piece unique. I totally believe that. And I am definitely of the school that, so I grew up as a musician. I'm a musician and a jazz musician at that. And there's a saying when you're improvising that there are no mistakes. All you do is you repeat it, and then you have a design element, right? So you meant to do that. It's a feature now. And Karen says, I recently tried brioche. After a week, I had to give up, but I will go back to try it again later. Absolutely. And Karen, I don't know if you've tried brioche with one color, but that I thought was a nice way to like ramp up into two-color brioche. And I did the same thing. I tried it, I couldn't figure it out. And then I took a break. And then when I came back to it, I had actually somebody else gave me some advice about how to do it, and it made more sense. It's still not under my fingers, like I have it memorized or anything, but it's not quite so scary. Something else that kind of I need to come back to is entrelac, where it looks like woven pieces of knitting. Danielle says, I had to step away, but what is the first item you recommend people make? My first project was a garter stitch scarf with super bulky yarn. Yeah, that's actually the exact thing that I recommend people make. So our Learn to Knit kit has the yarn included to make a garter stitch scarf. It's not super bulky yarn. It's not very thick yarn. It's sort of medium thickness. And yeah, and so you're just, you cast on a certain number of stitches, and then you just knit, 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 knit. And our yarn is self-striping, so it makes it a little bit more fun that you're not just making like a gray rectangle. But at the end of today's webinar, I will send everybody a link so that you can get your own pattern and your own Learn to Knit ebook with all those steps to make your first scarf. That hat on the right would make someone very happy, like a happy accident. Cindy loves doing entrelac. Good. Cindy, maybe you can, if you think of it, maybe send me like your favorite pattern or something like that so that, I can take a look. Yeah, and Karen says she made a variety of face cloths and dishcloths at the beginning. Amen. And so you can use cotton yarn, and just, it doesn't matter, right? And I literally wash my dishes with hand knit cotton cloths, and people think I'm crazy. Like, why don't you have a sponge? And I'm like, I have all these knitted dishcloths to use. So Danielle, I wish I saved that scarf. I completely understand. I wish I had saved um my first swatch, I guess. It was meant to be a scarf, but when I tell you, it was sad, so sad. I'll talk more about it when we talk about materials, but it was pretty sad. So and then Danielle says, self-striping yarn is so satisfying. I'm making some hats with them, including the yarn that you bought from me. Awesome. So yes, the comparison trap. And one thing that I'm really fierce about is being welcoming and kind and supportive. So like I would never look at someone's project and be like, oh, you screwed this up. Oh, you shouldn't have done it this way, or that kind of thing. We're here to learn. So it's always just like, okay, great. You always learn from every project you do, and then you can move on to the next and you can enjoy what you have. There's a Japanese word called wabi-sabi, which I love. And that is sort of the beauty of the imperfect. Awesome. All right. So let's get started. So if you go to this link, thespinninghand.com/beginner kits, then you will get our second edition of our Learn to Knit ebook. It has 100 step-by-step photos. So you can always, and it actually has a link on this page to a video as well. So if you prefer video. But what I like about the ebook is that it breaks everything down. 100 is a lot of photos, and it's like it's not even step one, it's like step A, B, C, D, like really breaks it down. And so you can print things out if you want to, but you could just really see every step along the way. And it takes you from casting on, from that first slip knot, to the cast on, to the knit stitch, also the purl stitch, and binding off. And then there are some resources in there at the end for you as well. Karen says, my first real project was a skinny scarf in a fan pattern. Okay. It's in my favorite color, dark red, like a wine, and I love it. It sounds like a nice pattern and a nice project that you're still appreciating. That was not the case for me. It took a long time before I really would wear anything that I made in public. Let me put the link in the comments so that you can get right to it. spinninghand.com/beginner kits. There we go. So I just want to thank you for spending your time with me today. We're going to meet up tomorrow and we're going to talk about materials, how to find the right materials for knitting. If you already crochet, you're going to want to watch this one because there's some little subtle differences if you knit that will make your knitting easier. So I could crochet with almost anything, but then when I learned how to knit, I was like, oh, this yarn doesn't work the same way. And we'll also talk about the difference among the different kinds of needles, how to know like what kind of needles to start with. And of course, because I want to give you more things, I will be giving you a discount code that you can use on all of our yarn and needles in case you want to get anything for yourself. No big deal. You can shop anywhere you want to, but I do want to give you that coupon. So that's tomorrow, same time, same place. And if you have any questions or you just want to reach out to me, I'm just going to put my email in the comments. This is my personal email. I'm the only one who reads it. And yeah, thank you so much. And I'm really happy to meet those of you who showed up live. Thank you so much. I have to admit, I was a little nervous. This is my first workshop like this. And so you just made it so enjoyable and so lovely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope to see all of you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.